What is up, all you twinks and twinkettes? Welcome back to Music Corner. As always, my name is Lavender, and I will be taking you on a journey, a year-end recap, covering the best songs of the year, hit songs at least, and the worst ones too. I want to get right into it since it's going to be a kind of long video, but real quick, just the housekeeping part. What classifies a hit song? I needed some kind of criteria to keep my mind straight on this. So we're doing songs that spent 2 weeks in the top 20 of the Hot 100 this year that were released in 2022. This means no Kate Bush on the list, but it also prevents me from having to consider some deep cuts from popular albums that were in the top 20 for a week because everybody was streaming the records and then they fell off completely because those aren't really hits. This means that I don't have to cover terrible songs like
Charlie Puth's Left and Right,
but it also means that I don't get to talk about some of my favorite songs of the year, like, for example, Megan Thee Stallion's Plan B. I'm also saying that anything that landed on the year-end Hot 100 classifies as a hit because there are a lot of songs that never really climb that high up the charts, but stick around for long enough that I think it's fair to consider them hits. So that's the method to the madness. Pretty simple. We're going to do the worst ones first. We're going to cleanse ourselves of some awful, terrible ickiness. And then we're going to talk about the best hits of the year. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. Let's do it. Number 10, worst hit song of the year. A lot of people have this impression of pop music critics that we hate fun. We hate things that are fun. We want everything to be serious and deep. And that's not the case. Hopefully this video doesn't come off that way, but it might start that way.
I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind.
Yeah, this track is probably going to appear higher on some other critics' list because it's so obnoxious and so trite and so mediocre. But even though I think it sucks, I find it hard to really hate it because all it's really trying to do is just capture a very generic sort of vibe for people to listen to.
You got those pretty eyes in your head, you know it.
It's so non-specific, it's so generic, and it's just one of those songs that I find it difficult to hate because I'm going to forget about it so quickly. Like, I can't imagine this thing will make it onto any of the 2020s retrospectives. It's not that big a hit. It's not that important of a song. I think everybody knows it's a passing trend, and I highly doubt we're going to hear from the two people who came together to collaborate on this anytime soon, or maybe ever again. So that's why it's pretty light in terms of punishment. Number 9, when I really majorly whiff on a song these days, like when I'm making my initial judgment of it and that turns out to be really wrong, often it's a hip-hop song, and I chalk that up to the idea that having some decent, passable flows and an okay beat is enough for a song to get by on, at least on first listen. But for some of these tracks, once you start to break down what's actually being said or implied and the sort of level of talent that an artist is bringing to the table, you start to see just how lacking it really is.
I've been throw up the sex in
Yes, at first I thought First Class was a passable enough song. Like I said, I think the flows on the track are decent. I think the beat is tolerable, and I kind of like the little like interpolation of glamorous on the hook with the I've been a G, throw up the L sort of way that it's a little bit deeper than your average rap song sample. I also still especially kind of like this part right here.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, I am. They say you a superstar now, damn, I guess I am.
But once you've heard this song a few times, it's really like painfully easy to see all of the places where Jack Harlow is a step below his contemporaries, and the biggest one is lyrics. I can't even lie, I'm on Angus Cloud 9. You don't need Givenchy, you need Jesus. And of course the now notorious, infamous sweet semen line. He really said that, and nobody at any point stopped him and said, maybe this is not it. You don't need Givenchy. You know what? That's a terrible deal. Keep the Jesus. I want the Givenchy. Number 8. Sometime during the first year of the pandemic, time stopped sort of like moving in the way that it's supposed to, and it really fucked with the cycles of pop music that songs and artists and albums are supposed to go on. And we see that is still around because a progressive pop ballad from the mid-80s was one of the biggest hits of the summer. And we know that it's true because we also had this.
I don't know what you've been told, but time is running out, no need to take it slow.
Yes, One Fucking Republic is back with a hit song that is attached to the newest piece of big budget American military propaganda. And while Ryan Tedder has admittedly assembled a really, really impressive discography of contributions to other artists' songs as a producer and songwriter, God, is One Republic just unbearable. When his fundamentals are applied to One Republic songs, they are done in the most tepid, awful, generic way possible to just make these songs that are so easy to listen to that they're basically nothing. It's such a non-song, too. I've been pretty vocal about how I think critics who complain that TikTok is shortening songs, it's kind of a cop-out a lot of the time, but there is literally nothing here. This song is just purposeless pap meant to set up the hook, hoping that hook would go viral, and that's exactly what happened.
But I ain't worried about it right now. Keeping dreams alive, 1999 heroes.
I guess you can't accuse the song of trying to be anything it's not, but that doesn't make the headache it induces any more bearable. And what you can say for the track is that I suppose it's proof that we do not need One Republic anymore ever again.
I ain't worried about it.
Number 7. Country music can sometimes be its own sort of bastion of popular music, and people tend to have really, really strong feelings about it. There are a lot of people out there who hate country music, the I'll listen to anything but country crowd, and there are a lot of people who pretty much exclusively listen to country music. It's like the only thing they want to hear. And as we'll see on the next list, like most years, there were some great, great country songs that became big hits this year. But also, as usual, there was some garbage.
We've been swinging and missing. It ain't broke yet, but damn, it needs fixing.
Bailey Zimmerman is one of country music's seemingly endless supply of fresh-faced white boys in their 20s here to write songs about things that they probably don't really know anything about. I would say the only thing unique about him is that he has the potential to be one of country music's first TikTok-born stars, and no, I don't particularly count Lil Nas X in that category. He dropped a kind of breakout debut album this year on Warner Music Nashville, and it had 2 pretty big singles, one of which I thought was decent, I didn't really love or hate, and the other one was this.
We've been talking about forever since we've been together. Something about a ring makes you think we're better off with.
This song is a series of borderline unbearable croons that tell the story of a relationship that is clearly on the rocks, but it has a sort of contrast to it. The pull here is that the details aren't really explored in a way that makes it obvious what's going on. In the first one, Bailey's sort of talking about how he thinks the relationship can't be saved, and whoever the girl is thinks that, like, he talks about a ring making it better, like if they got married it would fix all their problems. But then on the second verse, he's kind of musing on how he thinks that maybe they should write it out and that better days are ahead. If the song sounded good or was written by a good songwriter, I could see this being a pretty compelling dichotomy, but by the time you get to the hook, it starts to become really obvious all of the shortcomings this song has. Let's just say that I think everyone involved kind of forgot what the phrase "between a rock and a hard place" even means.
In between a rock and a hard place, red wine and mistakes.
And there's also no way that the vocals here were done in more than one take. The only way that I can see this as being acceptable and final in this recording process is if, it was done in a hurry or on the cheap, because these vocals are as first draft as they come. While it may not be as outwardly bad of a song as, like, I don't know, Fancy Like, or what's that Sam Hunt song, Body Like a Back Road, I still just can't ignore how terrible this is. Number 6. For the last 2 years, we had been mostly spared of truly terrible music from one of my least favorite artists in all of popular music. They dropped a decent collaborative record, one of their best singles to date, and then they came back this year with not only a number of terrible features, but also a terrible album with a lot of terrible songs, some of which were terrible hits. And included on this list is this one, which is all of the proof that we need that going forward into 2023, society no longer has any use for Lil Baby.
I be in a loop, she be in a group, Brody want a friend, throwing alley-oop.
What is Lil Baby providing to the universe? Because it's certainly not any lyrical substance. I don't think his performances are particularly exciting or even interesting. His voice is kind of indistinctly terrible, and it's not like he's bringing on a whole ton of talented collaborators on either the feature or production side of things. So why is Lil Baby still such a popular artist? I do not understand. It's almost like he's trying to make his songs so indistinct that they're basically unidentifiable, but occasionally he slips up and makes a song like In a Minute, which can be identified, but I would argue for all the wrong reasons.
Running up a silly chick, staying out the internet, share the stage with Billie Eilish, turn it any given time.
I can't even imagine someone being able to effectively listen to this song in the background of their mind, because the vocals and the effects put on Lil Baby's voice on this song are horrible. Unlike the few decent Lil Baby songs that exist out there, there is nothing catchy or infectious or interesting or even remotely memorable about any of this aside from how bad it sounds.
This shit gon' get serious about my money, this ain't no fucking Play-Doh. Wrote it down for double homicide, I try to tell him lay low.
There's some stupid, like, boomer types and really dorky white people, like the kind of people who unironically use the term mumble rap, that kind of complain about these made-up tropes of mumble rap, and it's just codified racism. But I feel like this Lil Baby song takes all of those made-up mumble rap tropes and really combines them into the worst possible imagined fantasy of some boomer or some white kid who hates trap music. Like, this is their nightmare, except it actually does exist. It's not made up.
And I'm out here grinding still, I need equity to sign a deal.
Number 5. The previous record we got from Joji came out in 2020, and it made me ask a question, and that question is, does Joji suck now? But then he released a new album this year, later on in the year, and it actually changed the question that I was asking, because now I'm thinking, was Joji ever good in the first place?
She'd take the world off my shoulders if it was ever hard to move.
Yeah, there are some tracks from early in Joji's days that I've always been pretty vocal about liking. Will He is a good example of that. I was also a pretty good fan of Slow Dancing in the Dark, but Jesus Christ, how far we've come. Glimpse of Us, this inexplicably flat, dry, non-song, which is somehow the lead single of a commercial album released in 2022, is like Joji taking this idea of writing ballads, of being reserved, of being intimate, particularly in the verses, to like the worst possible, dumbest conclusion imaginable.
Why then, if she's so perfect, do I still wish that it was you?
It just has like it's the closest to just little like skeleton of an instrumental, nothing interesting brought vocally or in a songwriting standpoint, if this wasn't from Joji and you heard this, it would be impossible to think anything of it because there's nothing even here to grab onto. Joji and his team must think that the appeal of his music is to just be as bare minimum as physically possible. And from a marketing standpoint, maybe they're right, because after all, this thing was a hit song. But I think it really makes you wonder about Joji as an artist. In fact, I would argue it completely shatters the image of Joji as like an artist who does things and makes creative decisions. Now he's just this. What we thought was Joji was left behind in like 2018, and all we've got left is, well, a glimpse of him.
Hoping to find a glimpse of us.
Lululemon Sponsor Me Challenge, 100% possible. Number 4. So that rule that I sort of enacted on this list about being in the top 20 for 2 weeks was meant to avoid album bombs. You know, when a popular artist drops basically the entire track list of their new record into the top 10. And there were actually a few artists this year whose albums were so popular that some of the deep cuts managed to stick around. Bad Bunny did this, Drake did this, and well, so did an old friend of the channel. Oh, Taylor. This is Karma, which is built around this really annoying, like, sugary pop hook and this really basic, like, pop formula with this kind of dumb metaphor at its core. I was pretty critical of a lot of the terrible fucking songwriting on Taylor's new album, and this is not the worst example by all means. Actually, did you see what else stuck around in the top 20?
Snow on the Beach, featuring Lana Del Rey.
And it's like snow at the beach, weird but fucking beautiful.
There's actually an even worse Taylor song, if you can believe it, Snow on the Beach, which suffered from the marketing bullshit of listing Lana Del Rey as a feature, even though it was just background vocals. But it also suffers from how fucking abysmal the songwriting is. Taylor, on the hook, if you haven't heard the song, actually says, like snow on the beach, weird but fucking beautiful. I guess it's not the worst thing from Taylor's new record, but surely none of those other awful songs made it 2 weeks in the top 20. Do you get it? Do you guys get the joke yet?
He wanted it comfortable, I wanted that pain. He wanted a bride, I was making my own name.
Midnight Rain is a waking Taylor Swift nightmare where she pretends to be Frank Ocean with these awful little vocal effects, and it's so bad that I can't even imagine how there could possibly be another even worse Taylor Swift song that spent 2 weeks in the top 20 of the Hot 100.
Didn't notice you walking all over my peace of mind. In the shoes I gave you as a present.
Okay, so the real song that I'm putting here is Bejeweled, which takes all of the terribleness of the other 3 songs and kind of brings it all together. It's built around this really obnoxious, really awful pop standard. The hook is a total disaster for a number of reasons. The performance is really, really bad. The production is so glossy and gross, and the songwriting is just abysmal. The lyrics on this song are fucking terrible. It's one of the worst things I have ever seen released from like professional songwriters. People swear that Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff are like dignified, stately, old-fashioned kind of songwriters, and they came up with this song.
Best believe I'm still bejeweled. When I walk in the room, I can still make the whole place shimmer.
I think the only solace that Taylor can take from this whole thing is that Bejeweled was not as big of a hit as her other disasters.
Hey kids, spelling is fun.
Number 3, as bad as a lot of these songs are, at the very fucking least, you can say that they are songs. They're actual songs that someone has written. But there was actually another way that you could get a hit song this year, and that was by just taking a different song and then not doing nothing on top of it. feel like I don't even know what. Do I even have to say anything about this song? What makes it terrible is so obvious. Like, not only is it the most creatively bankrupt hit song of the year, but I would argue that the additions that they add on top of I'm Blue are like worse. Like, it actually makes everything about the listening experience more terrible.
I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best fucking night of my life. And wherever it takes me.
The song also had 47,000 different remixes this year, which is probably a pretty big part of the reason why it even climbed high enough to be a hit, because I can't imagine like people, like human beings with free will, going out of their way to listen to this. It also highlights just how inessential David Guetta has become to popular music, because if you look at the past few years, aside from that viral video where he fumbles a tribute to George Floyd and his family, what has he really contributed to the zeitgeist? Is it anything other than that? I really think that's like his most notable moment of the past few years. I guess the only saving grace here is that Calvin Harris also released a bunch of terrible songs this year, so maybe none of the DJs we thought we needed should really even exist anymore. But unfortunately for David Guetta, his song was a hit, and the Calvin Harris songs weren't, so we were allowed to attack it. Number 2. So we're officially at the part of the list where we're past nothing. We've passed the songs that are genuinely just nothing, and we're back to a something, but that something is so bad that it's worse than nothing. If you don't keep up with country music, then you might not even know that the sort of much hated on zeitgeist of bro country is pretty much out the door these days, save for a spare hit here and there. And what's replaced it is boyfriend country, which is a lot more romantic, arguably simpy even, and a little bit more sonically reserved. And honestly, I think it's worse.
Jack makes good whiskey. Red dirt makes good riding roads.
At first, when you first hear 5'9", you could almost maybe mistake it for being something that is a little romantic, maybe a little cute. After all, it is an ode from Tyler Hubbard to his wife. Except, because Tyler Hubbard is an idiot, the only way that he can think to do that is by musing on how happy he is that God created her the way he did in order to please him. When you actually listen to this song, it is clear that there is not a drop of romance going on in any of this. I know the whole country music is just lists point is kind of overdone at this point, but I swear to fucking God, the verses on this song are just lists. And like, the only thing that's connecting all of the lists together or to the hook or to any of the point of anything is that it's just stuff that is made by something the way that his wife was made by God.
Dry wood makes good fires, good years make good swings. All that's all good, but for me.
What really kills me with this track, though, is the attitude of the song. Oh my God. Just imagine being the girl that this song is written about, and the way that Tyler Hubbard tries to appeal to you and make an ode to you is to describe your physical features in a strangely fetishistic way, and then talk about how happy he is that God made you that way because those are the physical things that he likes about your body.
God makes 5'9" brown eyes and a sundress, loves Tim McGraw and a small town accent.
I guess it's another peek into what middle-aged cis white women think is like hot in their sort of country boy fantasies, but I do not see how anyone can get any lick of romance or even good taste out of this song. Tyler Hubbard could change the lyrics to this song to literally be 5'8" with blue eyes and a pastel sweater, and I would still reject him right to his face. This song sucks. Number 1. So I know what you're thinking. what could possibly be worse than that last song? The performance was awful, the songwriting was terrible, and the sentiment was gross and obnoxious. If I had to listen to it for one more second, I was going to literally kill myself. Well, it's funny you would mention that.
I don't feel a single thing. Have the pills done too much? Haven't caught up with my friends in weeks.
If you thought that the sentiment on 5'9" was bad, wait until we unpack this little gem, because it is terrible. This is Numb Little Bug, the new breakout hit song from industry up-and-comer Emily Byhold, and I like to think of it as a song about mental health, but only as mental health applies to the members of AJR. What I mean by that is, yes, this song is tackling serious subject matter, but through the lens of someone who has never experienced any single bad thing in their entire life.
And the world, it feels too big, like a floating ball that's bound to break. Snap my psyche like a twig.
Not to downplay the mental health struggles that people go through every day, but this song sounds like a group of marketing executives focus grouped what the most common mental illnesses on TikTok are, and then tried to craft a song that made having those mental illnesses look as quirky and relatable as possible. The best thing I can compare it to is the, who can relate part of that Logic Suicide Hotline song. There's no quicker way to show that you don't really know what you're talking about as much as taking a break in your mental health song to go yeah, guys, I'm suffering. Isn't that so relatable? Isn't it so great that we're all suffering together? Aren't I so quirky?
Do you ever get a little bit tired of life? Like you're not really happy, but you don't wanna die. Like you're hanging by a thread, but you gotta survive.
Obviously, the song sounds bad. The instrumental is this awful, just watered down indie pop, TikTok pop style of song, and Emily's vocals are just deadpan Radio Disney. But I hated this song before I even had the chance to break down the sonic elements it deploys, because it is just such a gross sentiment, such an ugly mischaracterization of the real struggles that people go through, and such a bullshit AJR Disney-ass fantasy. It really does make me mad, and part of what makes me mad about it is that the rap duo Earth Gang released a really, really wonderful song this year called Strong Friends, one of my favorite songs of the year, and I see it as a really valuable, very beautiful meditation on modern mental health struggles and the way we process and talk about them, and I think it deserves to be heard by a lot of people, but instead, time is being taken up by Numb Little Bug. Yeah, the crux of this song is that Emily Byhold and Republic Records are basically trying to sell the quirkiness of mental illness to a bunch of middle schoolers, and it's basically the worst thing I heard this year. So I'm going to take a super pass on it, and hopefully we'll never have to hear anything from this artist ever again.
Like a numb little bug that's gotta survive, that's gotta survive.
So that's the bad songs. Wash it out, cleanse it, forget them, they're done, they're over. We're going to shift gears, and we're going to talk about the good stuff, the best hit songs of the year. And I am so much happier now that we just get to just praise. It's just praise from here on out. It's just love. Number 10. This wasn't a great year for hit songs in the rap world, at least in my opinion. There were a lot of tracks that I thought were okay, certainly not bad enough to hate, but not really landing on the list, on the best list. I mean, it was a slow year for rap hits, but in the back of my mind, I should have known exactly who was going to come through for me.
Take off the foo-foo, take off the cloud chase, take off the Wi-Fi, take off the money phone, take off the car loan, take off the flex and the white loss.
Kendrick's new album is really enjoyable for reasons that have nothing to do with the commercial viability of any of the songs, but there is a moderately commercially viable song here in N95 that turned out to be a pretty decent hit, and I'm happy for that because it's a wild song, it's a creative song, it is a fresh and exciting hip-hop hit in a year that had very few of those. Kendrick's flows here, particularly on the verses, are bouncy and energetic in a way that reminds me a lot of one of the better hip-hop hits of last year, which also had Kendrick on it, the Baby Keem song Family Ties. But at the end of the day, it's really that hook that gets it over the hump.
You ugly as fuck.
You out of pocket.
2 ATMs, you stepping to what?
You out of pocket.
Who you think they talk about? Talk about us.
This didn't end up sticking around for as long as I hoped it would because I think it's really good, but at the end of the day, it was eligible for the list. I think it was a big enough hit to warrant being on here, and it's a total banger. So, in 95. Number 9. This part might make me look like a bit of a hypocrite because earlier on in the video I've made some complaints about lazy sampling, which this song no doubt kind of does. And I've also been pretty vocal in the past about some artists for being not the best people in the whole world. And you can certainly say that. People have said that about this artist. But at the end of the day, you got to fall back on your instincts, which as a twink who loves pop music, that means that you know what that means.
Hey girl, I can lick it, I can ride it while you slipping and sliding. I can do all them little tricks and keep the dick up inside it.
This song fucking rules. I don't even know if I need to say that much about it. Nicki's brags on this song are just so funny and so lethal and so effective. She has this larger-than-life personality to her still that translates into so many of her songs, and just it just works. But it isn't even just like intangible elements like charm that are selling this song. I really do think Nicki's intense and focused performance is really good.
What the fuck this ain't Chanel, nigga custom down? Like what the fuck this ain't Burberry custom brown? He said, could you throw it back when you touch the ground? And he said, do that pussy purr. I said, yup, me up.
While it doesn't necessarily take Nicki in any new directions or anything, it proves exactly why she has made a career out of doing the things that she's good at. The same kind of highly sexual and overly glamorized bars and lifestyle that you would expect, and once again, it just clicked with me right away. And while this may not be the result of any decisions creatively made on the part of the song itself, Super Freak holds up incredibly well. In all the times I heard Super Freaky Girl, and believe me, it was a lot, I never got tired of hearing Super Freak on the hook. I just think that was a great choice for the sample. Not that it's not overdone, and not that it couldn't have been applied in a bit more of a creative way, but I don't know, the song just works. I was never tired of it. I think it is catchy. I think it is hard-hitting. I think it has a great charm and poise to it, and it works. It just works. Number 8. A couple of years ago, there was this big hit EDM song. You've definitely heard it. It was from one of those no-name producers who doesn't really seem like they matter and doesn't really provide anything to the song. The joke is that there were like a million of those hits in the back half of the 2010s, so you couldn't possibly know which one I was talking about, and they were all terrible, but this one in particular had something unique about it. It's called The Middle.
Oh, baby. Why don't you just meet me in the middle?
And while this song does suck and sound bad and it's about nothing, the lyrics bait you with a kind of serious take on what might be a struggling relationship, but then the hook does nothing to specify or resolve any of that. The one unique thing about this song is that it was sung by a country singer, which kind of stands out in the EDM field, and as it turns out, she hasn't gone anywhere.
I swear I don't know how I trusted a Montero with the AC busted, a couple bad demos on a burn CD.
I was never crazy about Maren Morris on her first 2 records, and I certainly don't like The Middle, but when I heard this song, Circles Around This Town, early this year, it just clicked with me, and I've been pulling for it to be a hit single all year just so I could talk about it on a list like this. It just subverts so many of my expectations for the corniness of country music and how they tend to just cover the same ground, write about a lot of the same things, but Maren really brings her own style and personality as a songwriter to this track. But it's also not bitter or resentful of those country tropes. It is the story of Marin's journey to Nashville, becoming a songwriter. But the sort of character of the town in the song is really like a living entity that exists within that story and builds and changes the way that she approaches things. It's really interesting from like a songwriting perspective. And while that songwriting is obviously a class above almost anything else that was popular in country music this year, I also just like the way that the song sounds. Sure, it's maybe a little overproduced by my own taste in country music, but you could say that about almost any country hit in the past few years, and I don't think it takes away from just how earnest this track feels coming from Marin. Plus, she pissed off Tucker Carlson and used that publicity to raise a bunch of money for trans kids this year. So you know what? Hell yeah. Maren Morris. Number 7. So Drake released an album this year, and it's safe to say that people were not crazy about it. Well, I think honestly Nevermind was a little bit overhated, and there are a lot of songs from the record that still stay in my rotation. It was really obvious right out the gate what everyone's favorite track was, and it was the closer, Jimmy Cooks, which saw Drake teaming up with 21 Savage. So
21, can you do something for me? 21. Can you hit a little rich flex for me? 21. Then 21, can you do something for me?
These days, a lot of big records come out without singles, and it's sort of the job of the listeners to identify which song are their favorite, which song are going to be the singles, and then the artists react to that. And it pretty much felt like everyone knew the moment they turned Her Loss on that Rich Flex was going to be the hit. Not only is that intro instantly one of the most memeable things in all of music this year, but it just sees Drake and 21 Savage both leaning into the things that make them compelling as artists, and they contrast each other really well.
Do your thing, 21.
Yellow diamonds in the watch. This shit costs a lot. Never send a bitch or die. That's how you get shot.
21 Savage was kind of in his bag this year as a featured artist in particular when he popped up on a number of songs that I really, really enjoyed in 2022, and he brought a lot of those good performances to Her Loss, to the point that this might be my favorite performance he gave anywhere this year. From the great little interpolation of the Megan Thee Stallion Savage flow to all of 21's hilarious little ad-libs, and in particular, the bar took her panties off and she's thicker than the plot. Yeah. This is great.
I'm a savage. 21. Smacker, booty, and magic. I slap a pussy nigga with the ratchet.
It's a great intro track to what turned out to be a very solid record, and it deserves all of the streams and play that it is getting. Number 6. At least once a year, and in pretty much any good year for music, there is something to contrast the big budget, overblown pop anthems. Something more intimate, something more earnest and raw, and it's sometimes hard to understand how those songs even became hits, but for a lot of them, boy, am I glad they became hits.
These things eat at your bones and drive your young mind crazy.
Zach Bryan's a new guy to country music, and he's kind of like the inverse Bailey Zimmerman, where he also kind of blew up from a TikTok, but I actually think he's good and kind of talented. He released this massive debut album that I thought was okay, a little much, a little indulgent, if you ask me, but it was really, really clear that the breakout song was Something in the Orange. When you first hear this song, I think people will have some misconceptions about Zach's voice because it doesn't really have that country music dirt to it that you're expecting. It's almost more of a softer singer-songwriter-y type. But God, once you get to the hook of this song and you hear his voice just crack and reach with these little gentle imperfections and idiosyncrasies, it's just beautiful, and it works so well with what the song is trying to do.
To you I'm just a man, to me you're all I am. Where the hell am I supposed to go?
This is just a great track, great songwriting, and I'm really happy this became a hit because without it, I'm not sure I would have even known about this song or this record, and my 2022 would not have been nearly as good without it.
Please turn those headlights around. Please turn those headlights around.
Number 5. For this one, I need to take you guys back to March of this year. It was a terrible time for the first 3 months of the year. There were genuinely no hits. There were some awful songs lying around from 2021, like Kodak Black and Heat Waves, and leftover hits like Adele's Easy on Me. It got so bad that there was a Disney movie song, multiple Disney movie songs, like rising up the charts, charting extremely highly, and people were so down bad waiting for new hit songs that they actually listened to them. And after the first big event song of the year, Dua Lipa and Megan Thee Stallion's Sweet as Pie kind of underperformed, we were all desperately in need of something. And Oh Baby did something come.
Come on, Harry, we want to say goodnight to you.
On the way to being the number one song on the charts for basically all of summer, I think a lot of people have kind of grown to hate As It Was, and I suppose maybe overplay is something that we could take into consideration, but the drought, the slog that was the first few months of this year were so bad that I could never hate As It Was. This song was like a fucking oasis, a short, sweet little right-to-the-point indie pop number that sounded both professional from a songwriting and performance standpoint, but also casual. It's not overdone. I can't really understate just how inviting this song really is.
Answer the phone, Harry, you're no good alone. Why are you sitting at home on the floor?
I almost love this song for its lack of ambition. It kind of makes me think about how Harry Styles got all this praise for taking such a big swing with his breakout single Sign of the Times, which I still absolutely love to this day. But for this album cycle, it seemed like he just rested on what he knew he could do and made the biggest hit of the year as a result. And this song really is made by Harry Styles' vocals. He could have taken a more reserved and comatose approach to this, or he could have wailed his heart out and tried to really sell it, but he doesn't do either of those things. He settles somewhere in the middle, and it's great. Appropriately, this is the coziest hit song of 2022.
You know it's not the same as it was.
And it categorically dominated the summer so bad that I don't think the summer of 2022 will ever be able to be mentally separated from As It Was. Number 4, a couple of weeks ago, an artist who has been away for a while came back and dropped a new record. You might have heard about it. Yep, SZA came back with a new album, and it's fucking great. Not that I ever really doubted that she wouldn't come back with something awesome, but in retrospect, there were signs.
Kiss me dangerous. Been so lost without you all around me.
If you had Shirt described to you, it might just sound like any old SZA song. It has that skeletal kind of hypnotic beat that interpolates some trap flavors but is still firmly R&B, and the opening verse sees SZA discussing both her anxieties and her on-again, off-again romances.
In the dark right now, feeling lost but I like it. Comfort in my sins and all about me.
But there's a moment on this song right where it flips from the first pre-chorus into the first chorus that sold me instantaneously.
And it's all about blood stain on my shirt, new bitch on my nerves, old nigga got curved.
There are so many songs on her new album that I would love to be hits, and we'll just have to stick around into 2023 and see if that happens. But in the meantime, Shirt is such a great song. It features one of the best hooks she's ever written, and if this turns out to be the representative for the actual SOS era and not, Good Days, a song written 2 years ago, you won't catch me complaining, because I've been listening to this song continuously since it came out. Way earlier this year, I made a video where I expressed my shock that Kodak Black, of all people, had a song in the top 10 of the Hot 100. Little did I know that fucking Kate Bush would wind up there later that summer. But I think, aside from Kate Bush, you could argue that there might be one artist who was just as surprising to have a hit. And finally, less of a prediction and more of just wishful thinking. Even though I wasn't crazy about his new record, Steve Lacy's Bad Habit is definitely the best song of his entire career, and if it became a hit, it would be one of the best hits of this entire summer, one of the best hits of this entire year, period. It made a jump all the way from 100 up to 50, so clearly it's catching on. It will almost certainly make a jump again when combined with Steve Lacy's album streams coming in. And if this thing could just stick, if it could continue to gain traction on TikTok and ultimately stick with the radio and become a big hit in the second half of the summer, that would just be awesome. Safe to say some of that came true.
Wanted me, I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me.
Steve Lacy has an incredibly impressive collection of contributions to a number of wonderful, fantastic songs throughout the 2010s, but he has always felt, at least to me, like more of a background kind of artist. He does have some moderately popular songs in his back catalog, but to me, it always seemed like he was not really the type of artist who was destined for stardom. And maybe that still is the case because he's had some issues handling fans that only know Bad Habit at his show recently. But with a song like this, I understand why people just can't resist.
It's too late to pursue. I bite my tongue, it's a bad habit.
This song is seeping with imperfections. Steve Lacy's vocals, his warbly singing is kind of all over the place. The really ugly, blown out sort of buzzing that emerges on the second half of the song, and the drums that are completely disconnected from the otherwise like psychedelic style of the instrumentation. But somehow all of those sort of mismatched anomalies give the song this genuinely outsider quirk and charm to it. It doesn't sound like anything else on the radio right now, and I think that's why a lot of the indie crowd, at least on TikTok, had gravitated towards it. I've heard a lot of people complain about the song, and occasionally for some of the very valid reasons that I just brought up about it, but sort of like As It Was, I think this thing has an inescapable and irresistible charm to it. Where I think Harry Styles kind of comes from a place that's almost therapeutic, I think Steve Lacy is deploying his oddball style and unique sentimentalities perfectly in order to craft a song that just feels so unique on the radio and on the charts right now, and the resulting hit feels deserved. Number 2. Speaking of surprise hits, there is an artist this year who had a long-awaited commercial breakthrough. It's no secret that I'm a pretty big fan of hers, and if you told me that her big breakout was going to come on a song where she helps to turn a sort of stately British balladeer into a dark cabaret singer, I would have been surprised, but you know what? I'll take it. After listening to this song through TikTok previews for a month before it came out, I feel like I pretty much had gotten the gist of it, and yet, the first time I heard it as a full song, it just clicked with me instantly, and I knew right away that it was going to be one of my favorite songs of the year. From that angelic introduction, immediately cut off by the bass line, the dark, murmuring, spacious instrumentation. I've never been a Sam Smith fan necessarily, and I wasn't going into this song thinking that they were gonna win me over or anything, but it didn't take long to basically win me over. it just grabs you right away, and that hook is so good, with the choir going off in the background and Sam's vocals just cascading over this song. It is so intoxicating. But this song would not be complete, nor would it be this high on the list, without Kimmy. Kim isn't on the song for very long, but her verse does absolutely everything that it needs to.
Daddy, daddy, if you wanna drop the attic, give me love, give me Fendi, my Balenciaga daddy.
Not only does she give the song the hard, sensual edge that it's looking for, but it's coming from a place of experience, at least in Kim's point, which is the one thing Sam Smith was lacking going into a song like this. Hearing her rattle off designer brands in one catchy refrain after another makes for a short but really memorable and really enjoyable addition to this song.
And when you want it, baby, I know I got you covered. And when you need it, baby, just jump under the covers.
At the end of the day, it was always going to be pretty easy to sell me on this track, and seeing two trans people collaborating on a song at number 1 on the Hot 100 is admittedly really fucking cool and kind of warms my heart. But this song is no novelty, and it is not placed this highly on the list lightly, because it's a goddamn banger. I did a whole breakdown of this track and what I like so much about it for Ringtone Magazine's Caller ID section a few months ago. Link in the bio if you want to read that. Just more thoughts of mine on the song. Number 1. One of the things that makes a great critic, an all-time great critic, is having restraint. While everyone around you is going crazy for something, you have the focus and the context and the experience to look through the grandiosity of an event and judge something for what it actually is. And when that's applied to pop music, it means that you just have to look past the spectacle of a song and judge the song underneath for its own merits as a song that will one day exist completely separate from the hype that may have been building up for it up to its release. And most years, the biggest thing to happen in music is not necessarily the best thing to happen in music. But 2022 was not one of those years.
You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul.
After a 6-year studio album drought with a number of little projects in between that failed to really live up to expectations, Beyonce returns, Renaissance, the new album, Break My Soul, the lead single. And one of the first things I like about this song is that it succeeded in becoming a hit despite its promotional tactics, not because of them. Not only was it released in the middle of a tracking week with pretty low promotion by big pop song standards, but to this day it still doesn't have a proper music video, and yet, despite all of that, it succeeded in being one of the biggest and most instantly recognizable hit songs of the year.
I just fell in love, and I just quit my job. I'm gonna find no drive, damn, they work me so damn hard.
And that's because it is just so fucking good. It sees Beyonce turning in a new direction, taking the flavors of dance and house music and applying her pop and R&B veneer to them, but doing so in a way that pays so much tribute to the black and queer roots of those dance styles. It's actually genuinely unbelievable to me how this song manages to so perfectly walk the line between being entirely of its own volition, being a new, exciting sonic direction for one of the most popular artists on earth, while also being so careful to pay homage to so many of the foundational building blocks that led to this. As good as the instrumental is, what really does it for me, as usual, are Beyonce's refrains. She continues to sound like the most essential voice in all of popular music. Everything from Quitting Your Job to Worldwide Hoodies became instantly recognizable meme and culture bait the moment that this song hit the internet. And of all of the great bouncy refrains in this track, can we talk about this part in the second verse? Because just think about the best moments in music this year.
The queens in the front and the doms in the back. Ain't taking no flicks, but the whole click snap. There's a whole lot of people in the house trying to smoke with the yak in your mouth.
In the 2010s, Beyonce kind of graduated from pop star to pop auteur, and her first move of the 2020s could have been wrought with grandiosity and unnecessary stature. But instead, she just made a flat-out amazing song, dropped a plain music video to it, and then showed up with a full record worth of similarly great tracks.
And we back outside. You said you outside, but you ain't that outside. Worldwide hoodie with the mask outside. In case you forgot how we act outside.
It's that same level of restraint that great critics have, that great artists have. Beyonce probably could have sold more records than she did. She probably could have grabbed more headlines than she did. But instead, what she did is made an amazing fucking song, the best hit song of the year, and one that, regardless of the lack of spectacle, we will be talking about for decades to come. So yeah, that's it. Both lists done and done. Check out the blog if you want to see all of my other year-end stuff. We'll do best EPs, songs, singles, albums, lists over there at the end of the year. Merry whatever holiday you celebrate. And thank you for watching. Let me know if you disagreed with everything that I said in this video, which I'm sure you do. And tell me what some of your favorite and least favorite hit songs of the year were, because we just all love to talk about music. And I'll see you in 2023, where there are already dozens of albums announced that I am very excited about.